years since we did a podcast interview together. Similar topic. Back then we were talking about einkorn. Today we're broadening a bit to talk about all the beautiful ancient grains, because there's many reasons to consider all of them. Moving away from modern wheat toward the older grains. And so I'm really excited to dive in with you today.
It's great to be with you, Lori. It's been fun to be on this journey and to do a lot of it alongside with you as you've grown in traditional cooking school and you help people in so many ways. I think that the way we started, we'll get into the history I know in our discussion, but a lot of it really plays into the way that these grains came about too. And so we'll tell a story of each one and hopefully help people to understand more about ancient grains and why we're doing this. So we're really glad that you have me on today and that we get a chance to share some updates about how we've grown and changed over the years as well. So thank you.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for this update. So first, let's backtrack just you share a little bit about you and your family. So we can get to know kind of Jade, the man, and the husband and the father.
Great. Yeah, so I grew up here in southern Idaho, not far from where you live. I'm in Gooding, is where my family grew up. And there was just a small family farm, and we loved farming together as a family, and it was truly a family farm. The challenge was that it was very difficult to make the farming team work and make it so that it would provide for the family the way that it was done. And we didn't have a real differentiation as the family on our farm. We were basically growing what everybody else did. We took it to elevator, and then they told us what they were going to pay for it. We grew a few different crops, but generally that's how it went. And so sometimes it would be good and sometimes it would be very bad. I always loved farming and I wanted to get back into it, but I didn't know how. So I left the farm and I got into a career in business. I stayed obviously in touch with the family farm as much as I could, but I was in a different world. And my wife and I met at college. As you know, Julie is a very good cook, and she loves to bake. And she's very health conscious as well. So we've kind of got on this journey together as we continued on together. We love healthy things, and we love agriculture. And anyway, so we came across with a friend of mine an ancient grain called einkorn, and the most primitive form of wheat. And we started our little family. We had a few kids at this point, and we came across this einkorn, and we got my dad to plant some of it. So it was happening alongside all of this while our family was growing. And a few more kids came along, and we were able to plant some einkorn and grow it, and eventually we decided we wanted to get back to Idaho. And we didn't plan to farm here. I was just going to do more business stuff up here, but we decided to move to eastern Idaho, which is where we live now. And when we came here, we had 5 children, and now we have 7. And so we had 2 since we moved here. We've got 3 girls and 4 boys. And everybody is growing up, and fortunately some have been able to grow up here on the farm. Since 2016, we were able to get a few acres around us, and we were able to start growing some einkorn. It was just a side kind of a hobby for us, but all of us were working together on the farm starting in 2016. And now every morning I get to go out with my kids, and we get to irrigate together and work together. My brother joined with his family in 2018, and he was actually the first one to go full-time with this business, because it was getting to the point where it was actually starting to grow, and there was a lot of interest in it. We loved eating einkorn and using it and sharing it with the few customers that we had, but there was a lot of interest in it. So I talked to my brother. He grew up on the farm with me, and he had a lot of interest in this as well, but he had also a very good background in engineering. He had helped me with a few little projects along the way, but I said, if you can come on full-time, I think this might be something that we could grow and do something with, and we could grow some additional ancient grains. We collaborated together and decided together with our wives that it was a good idea. And so they moved up here, and in 2018 they joined. And then in 2021, I went full-time and stopped my working in consulting and other business affairs, and I'm just solely focused on ancient grains now. Ranching on Ancient Grains is the name of the business today, and we grow a variety of different ancient grains. Einkorn is still our flagship, but we have just diversified a lot. And some of the very first recipes that went up on our website back in the day were Julie's, and they were some of the first einkorn recipes on the internet. And now we get to bake and use all these different ancient grains that we grow and share them with people across the world. And our oldest, he is now 22 years old, and our youngest is 6. So that's kind of the journey about how we've got here and what we've been. But everybody's been growing up along the way, and they're growing up way too fast, if you ask me.
Oh, absolutely. It's so true. But what a spread, 22 to 6. You still have little ones. You still have some fun time.
Yeah, it is fun. I love it.
I think it's so neat. You talk about your family, and then we're seeing this picture in the back of you of 2 little boys growing up on the farm. And I don't know if that's supposed to represent you and your brother. I'm not sure, but it's like...
These are actually my 2 boys.
They are your 2 boys.
Yeah, this is a famous photo that you'll see in farm stores, and it's one boy saying to the other, "You've been farming, Mom?" And it's just a cute little picture. So my wife gave that to me for Father's Day one year. She took my two boys out in our field and took that picture. And now one of those boys is 16 and the other is 13. And yeah, we work together every day, moving pipe and working together on the farm. It's beautiful.
Oh my goodness. And then people are literally buying this print all over the country from
Well,
farmers.
it's not this one. She just redid it for our family.
Oh, she redid it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that was me just being clueless.
Oh, you're good. Yeah,
Apologies.
you go to farmers market stores, a lot of times you'll see that, one of these versions somewhere out there, but it's cute.
It is the nostalgic. The name is escaping me, but all those nostalgic pictures from the glory days of America.
Yes, and it still exists in many parts of America, fortunately. It's hard to have a small family farm, it really is, and that's, I think, mostly because things are so expensive, equipment and whatnot, and farm ground, that you have to have a large enough farm to make it so that it can pay the bills. So that's a challenge for any farmer.
Yeah. Now, I do want to talk about that, but will you go back to what was the pivoting point for your family to just consider growing and selling ancient grains? I think we talked about in the past with
Yeah.
Julie's interest in health. I'm not sure if you could talk about that.
One of Julie's friends, they have kids our age, so we had some sort of family get together between our two families. It was a choir concert for the kids, is what it was. And so the dad of that family and I got talking, and we've since become good friends. And he told me that there's this ancient grain called einkorn, and I should go check that out and learn more about it. And I did, and I went home and I looked into it. And the domain name einkorn.com was coming up for sale that Monday. It was up for auction. So this was Saturday, and that Monday the auction ended. And so I put in a bid for einkorn.com. His name is Stan Ness, and I said, Stan, if you want to, we can just throw up a blog and see what happens here. And so we did. I was able to get the domain name through the auction, and then we just put up a blog, and he wrote some things, and I did, and we were contacted by people all over. And he works at Intel now. He wasn't really in the ag side of things, so he eventually moved on, and then Julie and I were really the ones that continued with einkorn.coms since then, and got my dad to grow it on his farm, and then began working with other farmers. But it was through that family connection that we had together, and it never would have continued if Julie hadn't been interested in continuing to bake with it and experiment and make it viable as a food for our family so that we could help a few other people to do it. We had it packaged by a company, and then we had it stored in our basement, and we were shipping out little packages from our home in Utah. So it was quite the journey to where we are today.
For sure. Oh, what a great story. I mean, that was such a turning point with your friend mentioning it, and then the timing of the dog being available. Oh, wow. That's amazing. And your dad saying yes and Julie being willing. This is how God works.
It is how
He's
God
working on different people all the time, and then they coincide, and it gains this momentum.
Yes, he's the master orchestrator of all this somehow, but it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, amazing. And then, so you grow some of these ancient grains. You can just talk about this briefly, but you also lease land or have other farmers growing for you so you can do more, or?
Yeah, so since my brother Jackson came on, we were able to start getting more land. We had our small farm right around our house, and it's about 40 acres is all. And then we were able to lease a little bit more and pick up another 20 and then another 100. We have a good friend, neighbor, who owns a lot of land nearby, who believes in what we're doing and is a big supporter of it. And we talked about our plans to do organic. And we were doing it here on my farm, and you could see how it was working and it was going well, and he owns a lot of land. And so we approached him and said, we'd like to do this operation on your land as well. And then he came on board last year. And so that was a big step. It was a very big step for us because we had to buy a lot of the equipment and things. And in the middle of this pandemic, everything has just been so strange. Fortunately, God has helped us to get through it all and navigate it. And so his land is now in transition to organic. And some of those acres will come available even next year because of how they were handled prior to us coming on board. So it's a 3-year transition before you can be organic. We have total about 1,600 acres that we're farming and ourselves. And then we have some other farmers who also have been very supportive of what we're doing, because it's one thing for us to grow out and take the risk and deal with all the anomalies of ancient grains, because they are different to work with. If I showed you a picture right now of this field we were just in before I came in for this interview, I combed my hair and stuff, but just moments ago, I was a mess. I was sweaty.
That's dedication.
I'm in cornison, it's up to here. It's so tall. these grains introduce new problems for farmers, right? And so to get farmers on board with growing for us is a challenge because it requires them to adapt. And there are chemicals like growth inhibitors and whatnot to keep grains from growing tall, but we are organic, we don't use growth inhibitors. And so we have to manage everything naturally. And with these farmers, they've been on board with working with us and very supportive and helped us. So farmers in this area, we have some in Montana and throughout southern Idaho here who work with us and contract to grow for us. It's through all this network of small organic farms that we're able to do it, and the people that believe in it and really trust us that we're going to come through even if the results might not be exactly what everybody expected. It's been amazing, but one of the reasons that we want to grow as many acres as we can is that we can control as much as we possibly can about the experimentation side of it. So it takes a few years to learn how to grow a grain. And we have other ancient grains that we want to bring on board in addition to those that we're already growing. So right now we're growing emmer, spelt, einkorn, coruscant, rye, and hard white wheat. I think we have some quinoa on our site. That quinoa is grown in Idaho, was grown by us. But we also want to offer a few other grains, which are listed there on the ancientgrains.com website. But those big grains that we have to experiment with, we have to learn how they're grown in this area and what the best practices are. So when we go to these farmers, we say, here's the best thing to do. And some people say, well, why don't you just throw it all on only your farm? And the reason is because with organic farming, you have to use crop rotations. So we can't just, for example, plant einkorn every year after year or the soil deplete. We have to rotate with other crops. And so we'll do einkorn, for example, for 2 years, and then we won't grow it again for another 3 or 4 years.
Wow.
And so that crop rotation is really important to soil fertility and the health of the soil. And it's not that einkorn is part of the soil, it plays its own role in building the soil, but we need to rotate to other crops that build up the soil in different ways and help to fight disease and whatnot. So we have a lot of things that we do on the farm to build up the fertility of the soil. And of course, fertile soil means healthy foods. And that's ultimately what we're going to at the end of the day. One of the things we do on our farm is we grow microbes. We have this big, huge tank, and we grow microbes in it. And then we take those microbes and inject them into our irrigation system, and then they go out into the soil and they reproduce. And what they do is they're helping to make minerals available to the plants and nutrition available to the plants. They break down the soil. They also help to make the plants healthier so they can fight off bugs and disease. And so we'll grow hundreds of thousands of species of microbes, put them on the crops twice a year, and it's just a natural way of growing those microbes from a humus, which is just basically decayed wood and materials, and inside of that is all kinds of microbial activity that we can reproduce on, build on top of that, and grow basically a whole colony that we put out into our fields. That allows us to really build the soil in a new way. We've been testing this for several years now. We're seeing that it increases the ability of the soil to hold water, increases water retention. It also increases the organic matter percentage in the soil. And this is all farmer geek stuff. It's important in this area because in the 70s we had a big flood. Some people may know of the Teton flood. And I just floated that river this last weekend. It's a beautiful river, but in the 70s it was a huge reservoir built up 20 miles upstream. And that dam broke and it washed right through our backyard and all of these farms, and it washed the topsoil off and it left just gravel there. Through all these years, these farmers have been working on trying to restore that soil, but in the meantime, they've been using a lot of practices that haven't really been conducive to building that soil. So the pH here is really high, the organic matter percentage is really low, and we're trying to reverse that so that we can bring things back into balance in these fields, and we're seeing a lot of progress with it. We measure different characteristics in the soil every year, and what we're looking for there is the right balance of those minerals and nutrients so that it grows plants well and can access the whole profile of nutrition in the soil.
Awesome. I love hearing that in particular because it's really important to us that what we're eating is nutritious and that we're stewarding the earth well. And it sounds like you're making it better as you grow year by year rather than stripping and going backward. You're moving forward, which is wonderful. And we've been eating your ancient grains for years, and they are the best, like literally the best. I get really good performance, really good flavor, such high quality product, fresh. So I just can't commend you enough. And hearing the background of that just makes me feel even better.
Thank you. Yeah, and you mentioned the word fresh, Morty. That's a big part of what we really strive for. Ancient grains store really well in the hull. These ancient grains have a hull or a husk on them, and it preserves them really well in the grain bin. And then when we need a batch of it, we bring it out and we remove that hull, we clean it, and then it's going through and it's getting packaged or milled into flour or whatever from there. Whenever the package leaves our place, it has a fresh package date on it, so you know the date that it's packaged. And you'll notice how fresh it is when it gets to you. And that's a big part of we don't have just gobs of bags of products sitting on our shelves because we're packaging it as the orders come in. Anyway, it's a remarkable system that my brother Jackson has built to maintain that just-in-time system, and it allows us to basically keep things fresh. And at the end of the day, I think that's what everybody wants.
Oh, absolutely. I've smelled rancid grains before, and I've smelled old grains before. And you don't even want to eat them if you smell them. You don't want to eat it. And these smell so good.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
Really wonderful. Is there anything else you would add about your growing, farming self? I want to talk about the differences between ancient grains and modern wheat later, but is there anything else you would add on just the process of growing and selling?
So everything that we do here is really designed about the end customer. Some companies, they're designed to serve a commercial market. So it's going to a mill, or it's going to a warehouse somewhere, or another bin storage. Our process is designed for the customers that we're serving who buy from us directly. And some of those people buy on our website, and there are other ways that people buy our products online or in stores. We want people to know that our brand means something. Here's what it means to us. We talked about the quality side of it, right? But it also means that if there's ever a problem, if something goes wrong, like sometimes with Amazon, I do not know the places that products go through there sometimes, but if someone buys one of our products on Amazon that was on Amazon Prime, and we're trying to get set up on Seller Fulfilled Prime, I guess they're opening that back up soon, but anyway, whoever they buy it doesn't matter if it's Costco or some retail, however they buy it, at the end of the day, we are going to stand behind this brand. And the best way to buy our products is from our website. It doesn't matter what the deal is or whatever, the best value, the best price, and the freshest is going to be coming from our website because it's shipped right from our farm, right? I'm not taking away from any of these other places where people can buy our grains, but the best value and the freshness is always going to be from our site. And that's a big part of our brand. And that also means that if there's ever a problem, I don't care where you get it, you need to come to us so that we know if there's some issue, because there are moving parts where we might not be aware. And so we'll always replace it, and we'll work with you to make sure you're getting exactly what you bought and what you understood you were getting. We have that satisfaction guarantee that we stand behind. We ship our products in paper bags, and that's unusual today, right? And we're trying to maintain that, but it is difficult because bags can get wet and they can get split open during shipping. But we always replace them. So if you ever have a problem, we stand behind it. We'll ship you a replacement. It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen, just because by nature of the paper bags. But it's a traditional old paper bag, and I think people like that. It adds to the experience as well as being stored in plastics.
Yep. It's the nostalgia we were talking about. It's got to be paper or fabric to give you that feeling. It's really wonderful.
Yeah.
I will take a moment and mention to everyone listening or watching that with this video, we do have a discount for you when you shop with Ancient Grains. So just look with this video. There's a link and a coupon code and explanation of what kind of a deal you're getting. So make sure to check that out if you're interested in purchasing from Jade. Okay, Jade, let's talk about the grains now. I would love a brief, if possible, but you can get specific history of how we got from einkorn to modern wheat.
So there are some parts about it that are unclear, but we do know that genetically speaking, einkorn is the most primitive form of wheat on Earth. It contains 14 chromosomes, whereas modern wheat contains 42 chromosomes. That speaks to how many times it has hybridized over the centuries. And that hybridization happened naturally in the wild. And it's very rare that it happens, but for some reason, sometimes it happens in nature where one species will cross with another and make a new species. And so einkorn, if you look it up genetically, is the most primitive, and it doesn't really have an ancestral relation to modern wheat. It's not an ancestor. It's more of a cousin of the parent of modern wheat. And some say the parent of modern wheat is emmer, or it's some other grain closely related to emmer that we don't have. We don't know. So you have the two oldest are einkorn and emmer, but emmer has 28 chromosomes and einkorn has 14. So einkorn is more primitive, genetically speaking. It also shows up historically, like Otzi the Iceman that was found in the Alps. They found einkorn on his clothing and in his digestive tract. Einkorn has also been found in the bottom of ocean with shipwrecks. It's been there a long time, but of course emmer starts to show up in the period of the Egyptians and Romans, and spelt also shows up with the Romans. Spelt is a 42 chromosome wheat, like modern wheat. It's 42 chromosomes, and so is modern wheat. So spelt, genetically speaking, is similar to modern wheat. there are people who are able to tolerate it and they can eat it without digestive problems. And on top of that, people really like spelt because of the flavor that comes with it. So those three grains are kind of the kingpin of the ancient grains. The other one I'll add is Khorasan. Khorasan is a relative of emmer. Both are in the durum family of wheats. Traditionally, we use durum for making pasta. That's where pasta came from in Italy. They traditionally used good durum wheats for that. Both emmer and Khorasan fall under that family. But of course, we use emmer and Khorasan for making breads and everything, right? You can, just like you can with durum. And Khorasan is an interesting one. We have not been offering Khorasan for long, but we've decided to do it. There was a family who had some Khorasan seed that they have cared for a lot of years, and we were able to take that seed over for them, and we began that actually just this year. And so we've got quite a bit of organic Khorasan planted, and it's a beautiful grain. Most people haven't heard of Khorasan because they're more familiar with the brand name Kamut. And Kamut is a brand, it's a company in Montana, and they're a great company, and they have their brand of Khorasan that they sell. And we don't sell the Kamut brand, we just call it Khorasan. You buy it from our website, we offer it under the generic name. But Kamut and Khorasan are the same grain at the end of the day. The standards that Kamut International uses for their grain pertain to purity and protein and ash content. And we also recognize and follow those same standards when we plant it and grow it. I'm not trying to take anything away from Kamut International, what they're doing, but I want people to just understand at the most basic level, Kamut is Khorasan. Kamut is a brand name. Anyway, so those four grains there are the ancient wheats that we offer. Now, rye is also considered an ancient grain, and many people don't realize it, but it's primitive, genetically speaking. Mm-hmm. It also offers a lot of things for baking. It's great for adding flavor. If you care for a sourdough starter, it has a iron activity inside of it, so it works well for milling into flour and using for your starch. And that's a very common use of rye. So we offer rye as well. And then we also offer just regular modern hard white wheat. And that's because some people want to have some hard white wheat in their pantries. And the local farmer that grows it for us is also a partner grower for us on the other ancient grains. And so it's easy for us to be able to offer organic hard white wheat and us knowing the history of it, how it's grown, and so forth.
Neat. Now, you did mention two grains that I want to talk about, but I don't think you currently grow or sell them. And I'm just curious on where they fit in the history, and maybe you're going to tell me they're newer. But I'm planning to use them in our Ancient Grains course that we teach at Traditional Cooking School. Okay. So it's not going to change what I do, but I do want to hear your answer. Okay. Barley and buckwheat. And I know buckwheat's not like your cereal grain make bread. It's gluten-free. Yeah. Do you know anything about those two?
Yeah, so buckwheat is a pseudo-cereal, and in many parts of the country it's considered a weed, but it's actually a great food source, and it's a great crop to grow. So buckwheat is one of the crops that we'll be experimenting with on our farm. It's a warm season grass, and we have a short warm season here, and so that's the challenge that buckwheat presents for us. But we think we can develop it inside of our crop rotation so it works really well there, and that's what we're going to be working on. We like buckwheat. It grows very quickly. It helps with weed suppression, as long as you can get it terminated properly, which we think we can do by the way that we'll incorporate it into our crop rotation.
And what about its age?
I don't know the history genetically or taxonomically of buckwheat, but it's very old. It's a very old grain. I know we've got an article about it on our site, but I have to refresh my memory on it.
No worries. We can't keep everything in our heads, right?
But buckwheat is great. You can use it for making flours. You can soak it and then dehydrate it, and it makes a really nice crunch for granola bars. We use buckwheat a lot at our house, and so we're excited to grow it and learn how to use it. And then the other is barley, and we do grow a fair amount of barley, but we don't have a strong market for it. We have to be able to do enough volume so that we can be sure to always turn over the crop every year. We don't get a stale inventory. Barley is interesting. There are so many different types of barley. Barley, genetically speaking, is very old. It's probably older than most of the wheats that we use, that we were talking about. It's definitely older than spelt, but it probably is getting back there to emmer. And I need to research it, but baking-wise, obviously, barley is very low in gluten, and it doesn't make the best breads or anything, but adds great flavor, especially if you soak it and incorporate it with other types of wheat. And barley is really nice, and you can have it pearled, or you can have a hulless barley. There are different kinds, but there are a lot of varieties of barley, and barley has grown a lot in this area. We've actually grown it on our farm, but we just sold it. It was part of a conventional rotation on some fields that were not yet organic. organic. But we do have a lot of experience with barley. We like to grow it, and we like to use it in baking, but we just don't have a strong market for it yet.
Bummer. We've been enjoying barley soup a lot throughout this past winter with beans. It's turning out to be a family favorite. Anyway, I'll share the recipe with you. Do you like to try it someday?
Yeah, we'd love to try it. One barley that we do offer right now, and it's a difficult crop to grow, is a Black Mountain barley. It's a little bit stronger tasting than regular barley. Like I said, there are a lot of different varieties. This Black Mountain barley was sourced in Egypt area, and so I think it probably originated somewhere over there. It's hard to know on these seeds where they came from originally. I got it from a friend of mine up in Canada. He has since passed away, but he shared some of it with me, and it is a really nice grain. But I think the Black Mountain barley is of interest to some people who are looking for the nutrition on it. Have you ever tried the Black Mountain barley that we offer?
No, I haven't.
But most people are used to using regular barley, and regular barley is a little bit more pleasant. Not I would say pleasant.
Yes.
It's a little bit more subtle, the flavor on it, whereas Black Mountain barley is a stronger flavor. And so when you try that, you can see, but we don't publicly offer it because we have very little of it. And so we have to kind of search for it on the site. But I'll have to out to you for your customers if any of them want it.
That was a great history lesson. Thank you so much, Jade. Now, if you wouldn't mind, this can be personal opinion, if you wouldn't mind just going through those grains and talking maybe about the highlights of nutrition and flavor so people can get an idea of what they might expect benefit-wise or flavor-wise with the different ancient grains.
Yeah, so I'll start talking about it in this way. Spelt is the most similar to modern wheat. Genetically it is, and baking-wise it's also the most similar. On the farm it yields more similar to modern wheat, not as well as modern wheat, but more similar to modern wheat. But yet it maintains a bit higher protein than modern wheat. The gluten's going to be a little bit weaker than modern wheat. You have to learn to work with that. But overall, I'd say it's most similar, and it has a great flavor to it. We love to make, for example, hamburger buns and breadsticks with spelt.
Yeah.
The flavor is amazing. And then emmer is not great for making bread. I actually prefer emmer in soups and in cereal. That's how I prefer it, and for pasta. I think that's where it's best suited. A lot of times we'll just keep some that we've pressure cooked and keep it in the fridge a small amount so you can add it with yogurt or something like that for breakfast. And I really like it. I love the flavor and I love to include whole grains that way. And then Khorasan, actually for durum, it makes quite good bread. It works really well for desserts, cookies. And anybody that's worked with a white Khorasan flour knows that it's actually quite versatile. If you're using a whole grain Khorasan flour, it's not going to be quite as versatile. But you can still learn to bake with it and make beautiful loaves and pizza. It's not as easy to bake with the spelt, but you can do most everything with it. And then einkorn is probably known for being the most difficult to work with. Julie's gotten very good at it to the point that she just incorporates it in her life. With einkorn, it's just different ways of working with it. In breads, it tends to process more quickly, and you have to develop the gluten a little bit more in it and some of these things. I think you can make about everything with it, but it does take a little bit more experience and experimentation. Einkorn is going to be the highest in protein of all of these. We see this in agriculture a lot, where the lower a wheat yields, generally the higher the protein will be.
Oh, interesting.
And einkorn is the lowest yielding of all of these, so it's not a surprise that you see higher protein as well. It's also higher in lutein, although Khorasan is pretty high in lutein, not as high as einkorn. That's the yellowish color. But einkorn has several characteristics that we talk about on our website that make it more nutritious than the others. And it's probably the most nutritious wheat that you can eat, generally speaking. Now, there are different types of einkorn out there. Sometimes you'll find einkorn that doesn't bake well at all. It bakes very poorly. If you're an experienced einkorn baker and this is not baking well, what's the problem? And a lot of times that's coming from a farm who planted a winter einkorn. And so spring planted einkorns tend to do better. And then there are different varieties within the spring that even can change the baking characteristics. Just have to keep that in mind. But there are 300 different varieties of einkorn. Naturally, you expect for an old wheat like that it's not hybridizing into a new hybrid, but it doesn't have more chromosomes, meaning it's still in the einkorn family, but just the different varieties of that einkorn that have developed in the wild. In the 50s, the U.S. sent people to gather seed from all over the world, and they gathered it into these national seed banks, and now they care for those. And so I've actually requested and inspected all of the different varieties of einkorn and looked at the differences, and they do vary a lot. It's surprising. but still they have that unique characteristic of einkorn and how the seed is shaped. It's kind of a rice-like shape, but it's flatter. If I were to just say, hey, we're going to use this in a soup or a salad, I would probably go with emmer. If I don't want something really bulky, I would use einkorn in a soup or salad, something small. We like to, for example, pop einkorn in oil and put it on top, and then it's crunchy. And so it's a really nice thing that Julie does for salads. I like that.
Neat.
Yeah. And einkorn pancakes are amazing. Coruscant is really good for cakes, cookies, things like that.
Absolutely.
That's some perspective, I guess, that I have.
I love it.
I'm not the best baker, but just some things that I paid attention to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you clearly paid attention and been involved in the process. More than just taking bites, you've been exploring.
Yeah. I do like food.
That's great. Yeah, and you got some good food coming in your kitchen. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, thank you for that. Let me just remind everybody, if you're interested in trying any of these, we'll put a link with this video to visit ancientgrains.com, and we also have a coupon code for you and a special offer. Now let's talk about growing the grains, Jake. So you're on 1,600 or so acres with rotating and logistics and lots going on. So talk to us about those challenges.
Yeah, so ancient grains have not been bred for agricultural performance. They developed naturally in the wild, and through some form of natural selection, obviously, they remained and continued. And that allowed them to exist until today. And then obviously there have been caretakers of these seeds over the years, but they're very important. There are seed caretakers throughout the world, and I know of a big group, the Rocky Mountain Seed Association, and they do a great job of maintaining their little gardens of seeds, and I think it's wonderful. And as a farmer, we've been saying, we don't rely on an outside company to maintain our seed. A portion of our farm is dedicated to growing seed, and our bin storage to maintaining and storing that seed. That's rare for a farm. It's unusual today, and we think it's important. I don't know how it would be possible otherwise. We couldn't do what we do, but even for just a long-term view of food, I think it's important that we are part of this process of growing seeds and keeping them. The nice thing about these ancient grain seeds is they store in the hull, and that hull protects them from bugs. It protects them from disease. It maintains the germination rate until we're ready to plant them. Some of these seeds may not get planted for a year or two because we're holding our seed aside. We want to plant it right, plant it, and the germination rate on the seed stays high. We don't clean our seed until just before we plant it. And that process allows us to store our seeds. And then as far as planting them, they are a little bit different to plant than other types of grains because they require some different equipment. But for the most part, any farmer will be able to grow them and plant them with standard equipment. You might just have to adapt a little bit. For example, these grains can grow really tall, and the height of them is a challenge depending on how you irrigate. So some of our equipment for hand lines and wheel lines, most of everything around here, almost all of it is irrigated. And so we have irrigation equipment. And some of that equipment, it's a strain on it. It requires a little bit more labor and hands to help get the job done. And that makes it hard for some people to grow. But of course, the biggest difference is in the cleaning side. Once you bring the crop in to clean it and prepare it to be shipped or turned into flour, it has to be dehulled. And that dehulling process is a very big process. Most people don't have the equipment to do that. Even if they have cleaning equipment, it requires additional equipment on top of that. My brother Jackson has designed the system that cleans our grains. I don't remember, there's like 15 machines it goes through or something. So all those steps to get it dehulled and cleaned so that you get that beautiful bag at the end of the day. That's the important part, is that cleaning. And we have an optical sorter that looks at every grain and picks out the ones that are the wrong size or color. A lot of advanced machinery we have today, fortunately, to make these jobs a lot easier than they used to be.
Wow, that's quite an equipment investment.
It is, yeah. We obviously had to take out loans and whatnot, and we're counting on this being a long-term thing, so we invest in equipment to be able to do that. But one of the things that makes these crops an advantage on the agriculture side, because I kind of talked about the challenges, but the advantages are, and the reason why they even have a really important role, is these crops, they tend to have longer roots, and so they don't require as much water. We don't have any dry farm acres here on our place, but one of our growers who does, he sent me a picture of soft white beets, which is used for cakes and treats and stuff like that, against a field of einkorn. They had like a 2-foot path between them, so it was clear to see they were planted about the same time. And the einkorn is much darker and healthier in color, and it's because the einkorn is very resourceful at using what's in the soil, and it doesn't require as much nitrogen or as much water to grow. And so that has been a trend across the board with these ancient grains. In our area, the winter crops do struggle a bit, but some of these ancient grains can also handle winters better, the ones that grow through the winter. There are advantages for farmers as well in these ancient grains, but then there are drawbacks. The other thing that we do on our farm, obviously, is we're an organic farm. And that means we don't use any herbicides, pesticides, or commercial fertilizers in growing the crops, right? In this area, it was a bit unusual because there weren't many of them here. And we have a really good location because we're sort of isolated here. So it's a great spot for organic farming. But it also requires changing in the farming practices. For example, crop rotation not only helps with soil fertility, but it also helps with weed control. A lot of farmers expect to see an organic farm or field and just lots of weeds. And that happens sometimes, depending where you are in the rotation. But generally, our organic fields are cleaner than conventional.
Nice.
So people wonder, how's that possible? Are you using Roundup or glyphosate or anything? We don't use any of those in the crops. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond not using them. We take it a step further on the other end of the crop. Once we've got it cleaned and we're getting ready to ship it to the customers, it sits for a few days after we've taken samples of it. We send it off to some labs. We test for glyphosate. We test for mold, yeast, coliforms, E. coli. We test for all of these things to make sure it's free of these before we ship to our customers. All of our grains are glyphosate-free, E. coli-free, mold, yeast, all of that. We obviously have to take steps on the farming side to make sure that doesn't happen by not using them. But then we test for it as a last measure as well. We definitely had crops, not from our farm, but from a farm up north. Once we had a crop where it had some infestation in it, and it was E. coli or something, we couldn't use it, and it showed up, I think, under coliforms. It has happened before, but we just test for those to make sure that there's not a problem before we ship it off to our customers. But the organic side of the business is regulated. In other words, the USDA regulates that, right? And they say these are the things you need to do. But there are a lot of things where we want to go above and beyond that, like the microbial tea and the crop rotation and some of these things that we're doing to try to make just the soil healthier and make a better crop. And then, of course, testing to make sure that they're glyphosate-free. That's not an organic requirement. It's a requirement that you don't use glyphosate or Roundup, but we're testing for those things to make sure. And we weren't always doing that, but we started to realize that it needed to be done. We've heard about, for example, there's always issues of drift from another farm. It can be in rainwater, I've heard. There's some articles about that online about glyphosate and rainwater. And so we want to make sure that it's not somehow ending up in our fields and on our crops. One of the other benefits of microbes, though, is there is toxicity everywhere. Even out here in this rural area where there are just farms, there's toxicity in the air. And these plants are absorbing that and they're dealing with that. And the microbes help to eat up that toxicity and to bring the soil back in balance. So if you ever eat, for example, a lot of candy or rich foods or something, you can tell you don't feel well and you have toxic overload on your body. And so you can eat well and it'll take longer for you to get better. But if you actually just don't eat for a while, your body, your gut is working to clear up and get rid of all of that toxicity. And it's the same with the soil. If you have a healthy soil, the microbial activity and ecology in that soil is healthy, it can deal with the toxicity that's in the air. We have a theory that if there were glyphosate in the rainwater, that the microbes would offset that. Does that make sense?
Wow.
That would also be another indication of why we don't see that showing up on the test. That kind of stuff is very complex and we test it over thousands of acres and whatnot. But we think that it comes down to a healthy microbial environment in the soil and take care of so many problems.
Oh, it makes me even more happy to be eating your grains because so often we just look for the stamp, USDA organic. But that doesn't really tell the whole picture. But now we have you sitting here, Jade. You are the farmer and you are directly working with your farmers and you can hear the steps you're taking to produce such quality food. Thank you for all you do, you and your brother and your farmers. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
We are a family business. The only reason that we are here is because people support us, right? That's what allows us to exist. But at the same time, our job is to make it as cost effective as we can so people can get access to it. And so it's always this challenge of being big enough so that we can offer it at a low enough price, but not so big that we can't really be there for our customers. And that's what we're trying to always be, is a direct to baker or direct to home farm. Anytime people can help us do that by giving us feedback, by just knowing that we appreciate them and that when they buy from us, they are helping to make this possible. We would not be here today if it wasn't for you and your followers and people from all over the country that support us. And it means a lot to us, more than we can say, to have the support to be able to do this. We feel like it's important and hopefully valuable to people, and that's why we're doing it. It is a little bit selfish too, because I get to do this with my family. And so I'll just take the invitation that if anybody's ever in this area, they are welcome to come, and we'll take a tour and see it. And we want those who buy from us to feel like they're part of the family too. We're located about an hour south of West Yellowstone and an hour west of the Grand Teton Mountains. The name of the town is Teton. If anybody is ever coming through this area, which a lot of people do, they are welcome to contact us ahead of time. We'd love to meet them and show them the place.
Wonderful. Yes, it's picturesque and beautiful. I haven't been there recently, but I'm sure was there when I was a child. We had lots of vacations around the Tetons. It was definitely highlights of my growing up. And for those of you who can't make it out, let me tell you that Jade does a lot of quick videos on the farm, educating on different things. And just like 1 minute at a time, showing you what they're planting, what they're harvesting, what they're working on. So I'll be sure with this video to include links to social media so you can just get a peek from far away. They're very fun to watch. Make sure to check with this video for a link to Jade's website and coupon code to get a special deal with your purchase of Ancient Grains. I believe we're talking about site-wide discount code.
Yes.
So there will be specifics with this video. And second, we are doing an Ancient Grains course at Traditional Cooking School. So if you have any interest in that, look with this video for how to get more information on that. We can give you info, enrollment dates, when we're running the course, etc. Depending on when you watch this video, it might be different. So I'm not going to say it in this video because it really depends on when you reach out to me for that info, and we'll be sure to give you the current dates. As always, there's going to be a complete transcript with this video, and feel free to share it with others who might be interested in transforming their kitchen toward the ancient grains, working our way backward toward Bible times, eat God's way. Thank you so much, Jay, for your time today. God bless you and your family.
Thank you, Gordy. It's great to be with you. Appreciate your time. Have a great day.
Same here. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that you got some information out of that might be helpful. If you want any of those links, I can get them for you if that's something that you are interested in. So anyway, okay,
Thank you.
that's it for today.